Back on Morning Line, we apologize. There's some construction going on here at the station. It startled him, startled me. Every once in a while, a drill might hit, and again, they don't mean it. They don't know this was going on. We'll see if we can make it through the end of the show with us. That startled you, didn't it?
Well, I don't know what I said out loud, but I felt some really bizarre thoughts.
We think it's Alex Friedman tunneling in.
We're talking about a pretty in-depth drilling exercise across the road.
Yeah,
Here,
just the timing of that. Listen, we had someone else who waited through the break. Let's go to Karen. Karen, good morning. Hi, Karen.
Hi, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I have a few thoughts about this fella.
Yeah.
First of all, I think I heard the sheriff say he wasn't crazy, but I have another take on it. I think that there's a difference between crazy and insane, and I believe he is insane, and that's more dangerous. Think of the Christmas bomber. These kind of people who go into extensive planning, they know what they're doing is wrong, but they're doing it anyway out of some sort of hatred, intense hatred, probably for themselves, but they take it out on society. Second thing I want to say is I don't think the guy is smart at all. I just think he has a good memory. There are movies that mimic exactly what he did, or he mimicked exactly what the movies did. For example, Ordinary Citizen and others. And I think that if he was that brilliant, he would have had somebody else do it for him.
That's great.
Okay, listen, good observation. I've seen him in court, and I do think he's bright to have orchestrated this. And let's be clear, she may be right. He's got a screw loose, but there was never any talk of an insanity defense.
Yeah, and Karen, I want to be careful because I don't really know what I'm saying or exactly what I mean when I say this, but I hear a lot and believe passionately there are a lot of people who are mentally ill who are naked in the park, or maybe even I had a case recently where a mother was in real estate and saw her name on the sign that, selling it was in a yard, young man, and he saw his mom's name and he walks in that house, thinks that's his house because that's his mom's name. And the point is, off his medication, severely ill, there's a lot of people who even go so far as to get schizophrenic and start shooting people because they think they're out to get them. Those are all real diagnosable types of things. What I believe is, I believe Alex Friedman is evil. What does that mean? I believe he had the time to plan. He knew it was wrong. He hid it from people in disguise. All sorts of evidence that there was no reason to believe that he was, quote, mentally ill in a way of explaining what he was doing. I think, and insane's a word is fine with me. I believe he was intentionally evil, and that's different. The thing. What is the group? Is it Mensa? What's the
the IQ and genius level Mensa.
He claims in documents that he is. Now, here's what I would tell you. He files many lawsuits. To be quite honest, I love David Rabin and Ben Rabin. They're good people. The truth is Alex Friedman represented himself in this case. He did all of the work. He in the courtroom was handing the stuff. He has always been in a litigious world, basically a jailhouse lawyer who is very bright in what he does. Now, I don't disagree. Now, if you would see how deliberate he was about hiding what he was doing for 5 years, this wasn't an easy thing to see. I mean, his mask, he had a hat on, he had full vest every day, came in different locations, disguised what he was doing. And when the day he gets the keys, he's spray painting, so you smell the paint, you believe he's, this was not, stupid me, I'd walk in and try to snatch keys and take off running. They'd catch me the first minute. If you would watch how hard and how deliberate he was at each piece of this plan, you would see how important it was to him and how deliberate it was. And I don't argue with Karen. I'm just saying the word insane, what I know is he wasn't mentally ill as a reason in which he was doing this. He could easily be insane from who would want to harm people that are innocent, and it surely wasn't because of his passion about private prisons, because that was all fake. That was just all a total facade, and he
because the jail, not private.
That's right.
It is what it is.
It's been asked many times, and the weird thing is we'll never know why.
Yeah.
We'll never know the end, and that's what leaves it kind of hanging, I think.
James mentioned at the end that he's heard too. I guess some people have talked about it, and you've talked about it. You've been saying it for a long time. This is going to be at some point a movie, which I don't know how you feel about that one way or the other. I'm sure, whatever. But this is as mad as I've ever seen you when this first broke. And with understandable. This was a huge frustration and concern for you. But it's possible it could be made into a film, and it does have the makings of it, doesn't it? Have you heard that?
Yeah, and I say movie's not the right word. I think it's a documentary. I mean, and I watch a lot of these, by the way. I'm watching the Jeffrey Dahmer one, God forbid, right now. That's just horrible. But I've watched a lot of different things like that. And the point of it is an intriguing situation. The public, the general public, never see inside of jails and prisons anyway, and so they're always kind of this mystique about it. But given who this person was, and given what he did and how he did it, it is clearly of interest to people. We've had everybody from the Rolling Stone magazine to New York Times. There are all sorts of people waiting and have been following the case. I've been here and interviewed many folks. I had a police officer who lives in Washington, D.C., used to work in Metro, who arrested Alex Friedman the first time when he was 18, called me and said, is this guy legitimate? He's calling me, interviewing me about this whole case. There's a woman in the BBC over in Britain or London who was covering the case and got, I think, hung up and wasn't able to get back over here for the trial, but is following it there. It's just, it is, there's nothing sensational about it, meaning you don't have to, I mean, if you want to blow the building up at the end and make some final ending,
yeah, but it's sensational. The facts are.
It is, and I'll tell you, Nick, even his life and his situation, and I'm just talking about, I mean, his uncle is Ben Bernanke, the Fed chairman for Obama.
Oh, that's his uncle?
Right. Now, that does not mean that Obama did it or Hillary Clinton did it. I mean, I'm not running off saying anything about that. I'm just saying there's enough weirdness that dad, mom, they take him to Saudi Arabia at 15, they just abruptly send him back home. They send him back home. They never claim having a son again. He's not claimed them as family since.
We don't know what happened in Saudi Arabia that caused that. Was his dad over there in the oil industry or something? Okay.
And
so he came from some wealthy background.
Now, dad teaches at Duke.
His dad teaches at Duke. And they don't claim him. His parents were never here for the trial.
No. And dad went to MIT and Harvard. So, and it goes on and on and on. I mean, you could just, grandmother dies, Alex and another family member were executors in the settling the estate of the grandmother. That seems bizarre. The family, 0 people show up in the courtroom with him. That's not sympathy for Alex Friedman. They know Alex Friedman. Yeah.
The only person that I saw, like in federal court when we were just there, was his wife, who he married in 2019, as you say.
And some advocates, Jenny Alexander was in court some of the couple of days with him. But yeah, his family, and he married this woman in 2019. There's, like I said before, there's a woman who contacted me out of the blue and just started rattling off all the stuff that he, all about him taking her money, claiming he was filing some federal case for her, and eventually, according to her, sexually assaults her. There's all sorts of, this is in, I think, 2000, and she contacted me because she wanted to make sure and was willing to testify against him and all sorts of things. So, I mean, I have no reason to doubt her. She knows a lot of Alex Friedman. She knows the family situation I just told you. Most people don't. I could go on and on and on. And what bothers me the most is we put a lot of work into that building. We put a lot of work into getting our staff trained and ready. A lot of work to make sure the inmates had access to things that matter to us in a safe environment. All those things. But to know, and I was in Washington, D.C., literally sitting like this, about to introduce Attorney General Bill Barr. That was my job as the president of the National Sheriff's Association. And I was reading his bio and getting ready in front of 100 people and a bunch of Secret Service and the media and everything else to introduce him. He was going to speak. And so my job was I'm sitting there, and Carla hands me the phone, watching the guns come out of the wall. And I had no idea. And by the way, I was the person, after watching the film, of seeing him work in a certain area of the building and wanted to know what was in there. I'll go up there after I'd watched several days of it, seeing him work in a certain visitation booth, and look down there and reached and touched what looked like a cinder block piece of wall. And when I pushed, it just moved. It just moved. And so I said, that's it. I'm not going to do one more thing. I don't want to ruin this. I had no idea what was in there. Contacted again the police, the DA, and said, look, y'all need to get here. We need to figure out what's in there. It could be a bomb. It could be anything. I ended up having to fly to Washington for my other responsibility at the time. And while I'm up there, all this is going on.
All this stress.
And they pulled this gun out, and I went, and by the way, you have no idea how many more there were.
Right.
I mean, the searching of that building is amazing.
You brought in experts to do this. We should say, if anyone's hearing this for the first time, that you feel very confident, of course, that the jail now is secure. But you had to bring out, with special equipment, to kind of x-ray the walls, was it? And I mean, you had what you saw on video, but you had to wonder, are there places that we didn't catch that he could have put something, right?
So we watched over 2 million hours of video. That is a lot. And every time we would see him working in a place and just kind of, he was very discreet about it. We identified that as a hot spot. And the hot spots were areas in which he concentrated on film over this time. You would not know what he was doing. You'd have to watch. If I showed it to you, you can't hardly tell. There's sometimes you see him actually using a drill. Others, it's very discreet. So we knew where the hot spots were, what we thought. We got on the phone with, we have a staff member who's on the FBI task force, and we got in touch with Matt Foster, who was the SAC at the time, the FBI. I was in Washington asking the people in D.C. to help us. Look, I don't know what we're into. I don't even know how far we got to go. We found a gun in the wall, and we found 2, we found 3. We're not moving anybody in there until we have the whole building scanned.
Right. That's right. Scanning it. We just have a minute left. But go ahead.
And so the bizarre part was, just to put this first week of March 2020. You know what happens then? We have a tornado the first week. Second week, we send everybody home for COVID. We have the FBI, the Border Patrol, all these federal agents up here trying to do this search. And the tornado tore everything up.
Unbelievable.
And they bought all this equipment, scanned the walls, and we scanned. It's a 400,000 square foot building. It was, and we believe that we removed everything out of it after a solid month of just doing that, and it was just totally bizarre. The most bizarre thing I've ever dealt with.
Yeah, and as far as I know, I was trying to think, was there any like-minded cases, to your knowledge, of a jail where something like this, during a construction of a jail, someone had gotten caught planting? No, I don't know of other cases around the country.
No, but Nick, I'll tell you, I mean, I have multiple friends in the national level of the stuff that they're using this case moving forward.
Yeah,
I mean,
and again, it was not. This was not a secure. This was a construction site. You weren't in charge of it at that point. The contractors. He dressed up. You go to any construction site of any federal building, state. I mean, it's not like you're going through metal detectors and stuff. There's workers. It's wide open.
Yes.
So it's really not like, well, who dropped the ball here? I don't know how you could have necessarily prevented it, but maybe moving forward now, with secure buildings, they're going to have to take some steps.
I was approached by a sheriff in South Texas, Arizona area. I forget exactly. It's been 2 years ago, and he's building a jail right now, and he is incredibly fearful of the drug cartels because they're paying his staff $500,000 to sneak in guns and drugs, and so he's worried in his construction phase. Now that this is out, that'd be an ideal place for people who want to
learn from at least now the warnings out there. Fascinating stuff. Boy, we didn't get to touch on more, but you'll be on again in a month. It's really good to see you, Sheriff.
Good to see you.
Take care of yourself, and it's a pleasure.
Yeah, good to be back.
Seeing you.
Good to be back.
Right, listen, that's a wrap with him. We'll take a break. I'll be back with a programming note right after this. We'll see him again in about a month.